This is the Allen and Heath Qu-24, and I'm going to run you through how we would set it up here at CTS. The first step is to turn it on. This is the on switch, which is a button just next to the power cable. When it turns on, the first thing we're going to do is, because somebody else has used this previously, there's a few settings that are stored inside it, and we're going to reset those mix settings. So the first step is to hit the scenes button. And when we tap that, brings up this menu which is full of all the different scenes that you can select. Often we will store our scenes in for a job, and then if we ever do the job again, when we arrive at the site, we can recall that scene, which will recall all of the settings, which makes setting up a lot faster and better for the customer and for us. We're going to hold down this red button here which says Reset Mix Settings. So if we hold that one down, it'll come up with a prompt asking us if we're sure, and we are sure. So now that all the mix settings are reset, this is a blank slate, we can start from scratch. For the purposes of this tutorial, we're going to imagine that we have 6 microphones, 2 lectern or gooseneck microphones, 2 lapel microphones, and 2 handheld microphones. So for the Qu-24 at least, you can't apply a graphic equalizer to channels or groups of channels. You have to apply it to a submix. So the first step we're going to do is we're going to assign channels to a submix. The submixes are located on the right hand side. When you select the submix, these channels no longer refer to the left-right mix, they refer to the submix. So the submix, we're going to bring the master fader up to 0, and we're going to bring the first 2 channels up to 0 as well. So we're imagining that these 2 lectern microphones are now being sent to the first submix. We're then going to send the next 2 microphones, which are lapel microphones, to the second submix, and the third submix we're going to send channel 4 and 5, which are 2 handheld microphones, to submix number 3. The other thing that's really important and critical when setting up submixes is to ensure that they are in post fade. So if we select mix number 1, we have to hold down the assign button and then hold down the pre-fade button. And then if we select the mix 1 master select key, all the lights will turn off. Now every single fader in the mix 1 submix is a post-fade fader. Next we come down to submix number 2, you can see that our channels are still in there. We'll do the exact same thing, and the same then again for mix 3. If you hold down both buttons and hit select, that's the assign button and the pre-fade button. Now that our submixes are in post-fade, the Allen Heath Qu-24, the way it's set up is you can't send submixes to the left-right mix. Only channels get sent to the left-right mix. So in order to take your submixes and send them to the speakers, we're going to assign the submixes to a matrix. A matrix is a combination of submixes. So in order to assign mix 1 to a matrix, we're going to select mix 1. I'm going to select the mix master and then hit the routing button, which is up the top. It's the second green one. Then on the window we can see on the second tab is matrix sends, and we're going to assign it to matrix 1 and 2. So the first thing we'll do is we'll tap that level, which is currently set at -infinity, and we're going to roll that level up until it's at 0. So what we're doing right now is we're sending submix number 1 to matrix 1 and 2. Now in order to take sound from your inputs to your speakers, we now have the matrices set up. We're going to, in order to get those to the speakers, you have 2 options. The first option is you can plug your speakers directly into the console, and in the back of the console there is a matrix 1 and 2 output and a matrix 3 and 4 output. So you'll just plug your XLRs straight into 1 and 2 and then into your left and right speakers. For example, if you happen to have a D-snake, which we frequently use, in order to connect the D-snake you would go to Setup, and then you'd tap I/O or in and out patch. Then you'd tap the D-snake in. You'd ensure that channel 1 and channel 2 are connected to input 1 and 2 on the D-snake. And then you'd go to D-snake out. You'd select output 1 on the D-snake and then scroll along until it says matrix 1 left. And then if you hit the +1 button, it'll make output number 2 matrix 2 right, and then hit the apply button. Now on the D-snake, output 1 and 2 on the D-snake are matrix 1 and 2. So now you can plug the D-snake into the speakers and all of your inputs will work, as long as your inputs are assigned to a submix. The next step we're going to do is we're going to apply a GEQ to each submix so that we can not have the microphone's feedback. So if we come over to the left-right page, in order to apply the GEQ and also to operate, we're going to set up the home page or the left-right page so that we have everything on the same surface. So in order to do that, we're currently on the channels layer, which has all of these orange lights illuminated. We have one other layer which we're also not going to use, which has a couple of orange and blue lights. Blue corresponds to the outputs. If we hold down both buttons, we're now on a custom layer. Currently on this custom layer, there's nothing assigned to it, and none of these faders will affect anything. In order to assign faders to the custom layer, we're going to hit the setup button again, and then we're going to hit control. And then under the control tab, there's a tab called custom layer. If we select the first one and make that channel 1, then if we hit the function key, it will continue to +1 all the way along so that each channel corresponds to each fader. Then at the end, channel 21, or rather fader 21, we're going to make that submix 1. So if we scroll along to the right, it now says mix 1 master. And then if we hit plus and plus, we now have the mix 2 and the mix 3 masters on the same page. And then channel 24, we're going to make the matrix master. So if we scroll through, we can make it matrix 1 and 2 master, which is currently at 0, which is important to know because we need to pull that up in order for sound to come out of the speaker. So we'll pull that up now. Now that we've set up our custom layer and we can easily access our channels and our submix masters and our main mix master, we can now apply the GEQ. If we select mix number 1, we can see these jump up. In the left-right page, we need to raise the channels up, and we need to lower the channel 1 mix master, or the mix 1 master. Now in mix 1, you'll notice the master's down. That's what we want. So now the only thing stopping sound from coming from these microphones is this fader. Now that this fader is the only one stopping sound, now we can set up the GEQ. So we'll select the mix 1 master and we'll hit fader flip. And now all these faders now correspond to frequencies. If you tap the processing button and then select GEQ on the screen, you can see that all these faders currently respond to the lower frequencies. And if you tap fader flip again, it's now corresponding to the higher frequencies. And then one more time, we'll exit out of the GEQ. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit fader flip. We're going to slowly turn our microphones up in the room until it starts to feed back. And when it feeds back, these lights will indicate which frequency is feeding back, and we can pull that frequency out. If for any reason you want to reset your GEQ to the beginning, you can hold down the red reset button and tap the fader flip button, and these will reset back to 0. So let's make some changes, and then we'll exit out of the fader flip. We'll go to mix number 2, which is now affecting the second ones. We're going to have to go to the left-right page, pull down our lecterns, and put in our lapel microphones, and pull out. We can leave our submix 1 up, and we'll pull down submix number 2. Now on submix number 2, because we have the faders up on the home page and the faders up here, the only fader that's stopping sound coming out is this fader. Now if we select the submix 2 master, hit fader flip again, we can pull out frequencies as we slowly pull the fader up until it feeds back. And we can do the exact same thing on submix number 3. Now that we're at the stage where everything has been mixed and the room has been tuned, we can go back to our home page and we're ready to go. So these faders here are our submix faders. We have submix 1 for the lecterns, submix 2 for the lapels, and submix 3 for the handhelds. So that if we're also recording, we can assign the record function to USB up the top, which we can cover in a later video. So in order for the lectern to work, we can pull both the lecterns up here, and then we'll slowly bring this up until it's at a good level in the room. And then we can mix individual lecterns here as well. And then for the lapels, we can bring them up here as well, and then bring this up as well until it's in a good level in the room. And the same for the handhelds on this fader here. This is now our grandmaster. So if you pull this down, nothing will come out of the matrices and nothing will come out of any of the inputs. And if you pull this up, Now everything that's assigned to a submix will come through the speakers. If you had more inputs, for example, content input like an iPod or a PC or a computer, and you wanted it to come through a matrix, you're going to have to assign that to a submix. And it doesn't have to be one of the submixes we've already used. There are a couple other submixes over here. So for example, if we wanted to make a content submix, if 7 and 8 were an iPod and 9 and 10 were a PC, if we pull them up on the left-right page, nothing's going to happen because these are not assigned to a submix. So to assign them to submix number 4, we'll select number 4. We'll make sure that number 4 is post-fade by holding those down and selecting that. And then we'll bring up 7, 8, 9 and 10 to 0, bring the master up to 0, and now we have mix number 4 as a content mix. We'll select the mix master and routing and bring the mix number 4 level to 0, so now it's being sent to the matrix. Now everything that comes through the submix number 4 is getting sent to the matrix. It'll come out of the speakers. Now you're ready to operate here, and all you would have to do is assign in the control section. You would move all of your faders along. You have mix number 1, mix number 2, mix number 3, and mix number 4, and your grandmaster. Now you can put your content higher or lower in the room and still have your content at 0 for recording purposes. And that is how you set up the Allen & Heath Q-24.